Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to this opening studio event. My name is Trevor Watkins. I'm the Global Head of Sport at Pinsent Masons, a multinational law firm, and with offices in Shanghai, Beijing, and Hong Kong. The reason I'm here, however, is probably because 20 years ago, I led the rescue of my local soccer team, AFC Bournemouth. We paid the amazing amount of £2.2 million for a club that now, 20 years later, earns 50 to 60 times that amount in 1 year. Also, notwithstanding the result, a club I can watch on Chinese television on a Sunday evening as we lose 3-0 to Liverpool. So I am delighted to be here. You're not going to hear very much from me, however, because we have an esteemed panel of guests. We'll be looking over the next 45 minutes or so at investment in soccer from many perspectives. To my far right, Nikki Wang from Deloitte. Many of you will know Deloitte as one of the world's leading football consultancies. Indeed, we've worked on many projects together. Nikki brings insight gained from working in governments in the UK, as well as now being based in Beijing with Deloitte. Liang Wang is Executive Vice President of Tianrong Sports, who have the franchise, the ownership of U1M on the powerboat, and brings a different perspective on commercial rights. Neil Chan from Lander Group. Neil is the CEO, and as many of you will know, made a landmark investment into English Premier League side Southampton recently, and brings insight into the operation, the management, the challenges that investors face in looking overseas. And last but not least, Peter Turnbull, who wears probably two hats, Peter, from Australia, here as London Football Exchange, as many of you know, sponsor of SoccerX, but also pioneering in investment in soccer, but also with a background of being involved in team ownership with Sydney FC in Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, your panel this morning. Nikki, from your perspective, perhaps you could help set the scene in terms of soccer, China, and the way it's structured and what you're seeing. Please, perhaps give us your initial thoughts.
Thank you, Trevor. Good morning, everyone. Just a quickly introduction about myself. I'm Nikki from Deloitte and the leading sports business in China. I think in the last 2 years, we have seen a significant growth from the Chinese sports industry. And this football, as a very center sport in the industry, has been draw a lot of attention from the whole industry stakeholders, covering from the government bodies and associations, investors, broadcasting. Seeing lots of successful examples from overseas market, we have seen it's always a joint approach for all the parties to work together. And also we have seen quite a large improvement from China market as well. We work with the top division league in China. We have seen a very significant development from Chinese Super League in terms of the quality of the competition, the fans' engagement. We have seen a very big increase of interest from Chinese fans population, and also the improvement from the management team, from the league, and also from the high level, the government also gave the sufficient support for the sport to develop. So I would say it's a very exciting time in the market, but also it's a challenging time for every party in the industry. I think how to, from business perspective, how to develop a sustainable business model at early stage, and how to work together with every organizations is always the challenge, I think, for each market.
Can I just, hello? Can I just ask, and at the back, could you turn can you hear okay what everybody's saying? Could we somehow improve the sound so everybody on the panel can hear what the other panelists are saying, please? Thank you. So Neil, from your perspective, looking at China Super League and the way that has developed, how have you seen that grow in the last few years?
Well, I think we've seen the huge growth of the league and the fan base and the investment in the industry over the previous, let's say, 3 years because of the government's policy or whatever. And I think the government is trying to engage more and more people to participate in the industry and to help it grow. And but sometimes people feel like, the business model is not clear. It's not clear. So they will rather to wait and see to have another policy to say, we have to stop that, and they're trying to focus on another area. Like now, they're trying to set about the youth academy, and certain policies coming out for the league as well. So each CSL league clubs will have five levels youth academy system by 2020 probably. So I think the government is trying to push lots of things in the league, but the league itself is not that clear about what's going on and what's the best practice and what's the best business model in this industry. So I would say we've seen the change in future, but not now. That's my view.
And so for you, do you see the Chinese Super League eventually becoming one of the most dominant leagues in the world?
Well, in terms of fan base, definitely, because we have a huge population. There's no doubt for that. But in terms of quality and the professionalism, well, probably one day, but not in the near future.
Liang Feng, in terms of sport and your experience with powerboating in China, how have you seen changes in the sport, the commercial rights, sponsorship?
主持人介绍可能有点突然，我简单介绍一下我自己。我是UIM
So
F1
I'd like to
摩托
introduce myself. I'm from UIM, Formula One powerboat.
深圳市天荣体育文化管理。
So I'm the operator of FI powerboat in the UK and in China.
那么这个中共
And also, we have co-established the F1 motorboat.
我们在中国
And we have secured world titles for 3 years in a row. And since 2016, we have been running this competition. And there are now 9 stops of competition. And the moderator asked about the changes in terms of the business development. So I'd like to give a brief introduction of that. And currently, the sponsorship is different now in China compared to 10 years ago, including the requirements from the sponsors. And in order to respond to the changes, first we have established the domestic and international sponsor exchange platform. For example, in June, in the F1 Powerboat Championships, and this Formula One Powerboat World Championship in London will be running by Tianrong Group. And so domestic sponsors will be able to sponsor the London event, and they will be able to promote their brands through this event. And if the international companies would like to come to China, in October in Shanghai, along the bond, we will have the F1 Powerboat World Championship in Shanghai, so the international sponsors will be able to use the platform in Shanghai.
中国第一艘商船。
And the Royal Victoria port is where the first commercial ship landed in the UK. So that's the West End terminal point. And Shanghai is the end point and terminal of the Silk Road in the east. So I think the Chinese sponsors will be able to use the platform, and they are more sensitive to the policies from the government. And in addition, we are also organizing a sports carnival which can attract a lot of fans to engage in the event. And sponsors will be very interested in this carnival, and also that has enabled us to extend the scope of sponsors. And recently, as the technology develops, like the VR and AR now are developing, and in terms of promoting the event and showcase the event, we have better technologies to enable that. And in China, what sponsorship values most is whether the TV stations like CCTV would broadcast the event. And the advertisement value would be very different for different sponsors. So now, as the internet technology is developing, now we have live streaming platform, VR platform, and we also have the pilot of 5G technologies, which can provide sufficient bandwidth to enable the live streaming and live broadcast with better interaction. And this would attract a lot of young fans to engage in the sports event. Thank you.
Peter, from your perspective, coming from Australia and your experience as an owner at Sydney FC, do you see parallels with the growth in China? I mean, Australia, as we know from our mutual friend Johnny Warren, no longer with us sadly, but Johnny from 1974 onwards campaigning for Australia to get to grips with professional soccer. How have you seen changes there in the last decade?
Well, the A-League is a 100% privately owned league, so all of the clubs are privately owned. That model has been successful in launching the league, but sometimes with private ownership you need to have the head body legislate for other considerations, such as we were talking before about the youth league now in the Chinese Super League clubs. We didn't have a youth league for the first 3 or 4 seasons. Now, of course, it's developed into a very strong youth league. And similarly, women's football. Women's football started to be associated with the A-League clubs in about season 3. So there are development phases that need to take place in the developing leagues where we haven't got the 200-year history that England and France and Germany have.
I mean, Nikki, from your perspective, we've seen a wave of investments heading from China into Europe. Most of the clubs in the West Midlands have Chinese ownership in England. You've seen experiments at Den Haag, French clubs telling, and so on. Why the change? Why the government change on policy to put a limit on that type of investment and to see more investment into domestic Chinese soccer?
I think as we just talked, I think from the government perspective, we really want to grow a very strong domestic industry. So there should be some more kind of investments and also the resource putting into the domestic development. We of course have seen a lot of kind of overseas investment, but I think the key angle is how you bring the know-how and some good kind of resources or model back to the domestic market. Because if you're looking at the potential of Chinese market, that's very huge, and that's actually, if you look at all the kind of international sports business now looking at the potential of the market, because one is because the Chinese government want to develop the industry, so it's more like organic development, but also they want to upgrade the consumer kind of spending in the sports. So there will be a very big potential for Chinese consumer to spend in their activities in sports. Well, if you look at some football as a global investment asset, as you mentioned, the English Premier League, actually more than half of the clubs owned by foreign investors. I think the ownership of a successful European club has been long seen as a trophy asset for the owners, and it helps the owner to enhance their business profile, but also improve their access to key relationships. And from business perspective, running a football club could be also some business to generate the revenue if you grow the club from one division up to the kind of upgrade or promote to the other division, that's a huge kind of investment return as well. So I think it's really looking at the Chinese investment angle and how we grow our domestic market.
So in your view, the era of Chinese investors buying multi-million-pound clubs in Europe is probably coming to an end, or has come to an end?
I think it has to look at what's the rationale behind the investment decision and how you leverage, the development in Chinese market.
And Neil, you made the decision to invest in the EPL. What particularly led your investment strategy? What were you looking for?
Yeah, I think firstly, when we trying to identify which area we got to investment in the sports industry overseas, back to 2015, we had lots of discussion internally and externally, and we identified, well, football probably is the best area to do it because the government has a very long-term strategy and a long-term vision to make the Chinese football to be the top, let's say, in the world, or to be a strong party in the World Cup. So we believe, okay, let's just focus on football industry. And when we look at the football industry, you have to understand the tournament, the major tournament, is something you cannot invest. I think, well, probably you can be the sponsorship, but not the owner or whatever. Then the TV side, broadcasting side, is something we don't have control, and we don't have any knowledge on that. So, okay, the left part is about the participants of the football. So, okay, then we look at the football clubs in the top 5 leagues in Europe. And then you have an analysis to the different leagues. Premier League is definitely the most powerful and the most popular, let's say, in the world, or especially in China. And if you look at the environments, political environment and economic environment in UK, probably is the most stable one, but now they have Brexit anyway. Back to time, there's no Brexit. So then if a company like us wants to develop the business in domestically and the overseas side, you have to balance the risk of the political risk or economic risk, whatever, and then the value of the assets you can maintain or increase in the near future. So, okay, let's target the Premier League, and then, because we have a strong rationale to say, oh, that's the most healthy one, that's the most powerful one, and it will help our business in China to grow. So we select the Premier League, and we trying to find the best target we can do, and Southampton coming out, then we make the decision. That's the whole rationale, I think. So I agree with Nikki's point about the investment in the football club or the other sports industry business in the overseas side. From a Chinese investors or the government side, we have to have a clear and rationale in future. Currently, again, I don't think we have a very clear business model in sports industry, not the football industry itself, but the whole sports industry in China. So once we figure it out, and the government feel like, oh, you guys have control what you are doing at the moment, the policy is going to change, and everybody's going to be back to the normal track again. So yeah, that's my...
Well, it's obviously interesting to see the differing ways in which foreign investment has approached the Premier League, and not just Chinese, but American and others, and the lottery the Premier League is. I mean, from your experience, Peter, with your London Football Exchange hat on, you're approaching investment from a different perspective. And perhaps for those of you who don't know, maybe you could explain in a minute or two what LFE is about and how you're proposing to invest.
Well, I think one of the advantages for LFE is that we provide some alternate sources of capital. When I owned the 2 clubs in the A-League, the Sydney FC, we sold out to a Russian oligarch. Central Coast Mariners was bought by an English concern. And one of the considerations is always the replenishment of capital. Running football clubs is an expensive business. It's a business where there are competing requirements. There are the requirements of trying to produce players to win the World Cup. There are requirements of the fans' expectations, and there are financial requirements of the clubs. And this is one of the things where LFE can help by providing some alternate sources of capital. We already have agreements with several clubs around the world to come onto the exchange, whereby we would buy some shares in the clubs. We would hold those shares in escrow whilst they're placed on the exchange and distributed to anybody who wants to buy, like any stock exchange. Similar to that, we also have developed a suite of special fan experiences, special once in a lifetime type experiences that the average fan or member of the public cannot get. And they also will be on the exchange. It's a total football marketplace. It won't be a situation where clubs necessarily lose control, where it's basically augmenting all of the competing needs and requirements of a club to participate in this environment.
And when you talk about buying stakes in clubs, you're using a cryptocurrency to buy those stakes?
No, the model will evolve, but initially to obtain these interests in clubs, we will pay with old-fashioned money.
Okay.
But the exchange will be operating on cryptocurrency. And the difference with the LFE coins compared to some other coins in the marketplace is that ours will be asset-backed. So ours are asset-backed in that the only thing that we're competing with on the exchange is shares in football clubs, football club merchandise, football club experiences. So they're real things with which you'll be using cryptocurrency to participate.
And I presume, obviously, that is reassuring in a world where, I read an article I mentioned to you in Forbes, where all about your company, and then says, warning, this is highly speculative, unregulated, prepare to lose your money.
Yes, that's because I think that full research from the journalist wasn't forthcoming, or he didn't have it, and that is that, as I say, the concept of our exchange is it will be asset-backed. It'll be backed by the football clubs themselves, in essence, through their shares, and by the special products that we will generate. But importantly, it provides that really strong link between the fans and the football club. And it also allows the football club to access fans around the world. You can't sell a membership to Southampton in Shanghai, but a Shanghai person can easily be a shareholder. So it just strengthens the possibility of those ties being stretched around the world.
Liang Feng, from Tianrong's perspective, Peter's just touched on investment, which is investment in technology, which is driving this new currency and this new value. Tianrong and the use of technology in your investment, perhaps you could share some details about that in your sport.
About 15 years ago, we've invested in one of the best football teams in China. And after we run it for 2 to 3 years, we withdraw. I think for the football industry, first of all, the Chinese government really has a strong support for football. Although it has actually tightened the regulations on the purchasing of overseas clubs, but it's about making the investment more rational. And also, I think about the best time for investing in football. I think that should be the time when the Chinese team will have the best result. Well, back in the 1980s, in Asia, China can still forward the finalist in the Football Cup. And then China failed and failed again. And then China was excluded out of the top 10. So multiple times of failure into the World Cup has actually frustrated Chinese fans quite a lot. And currently, in China, you see when we have Yao Ming in NBA, basketball has been booming in China together with the basketball industry. But when it comes to football, we really want to find the opportunity. We really wish to see a star in football that can become the idol for the youth in China. And this idol, this star in football, can actually increase the value of the football industry together with all the related assets. And that will be the time when the spring of football in China comes. And actually, that would just be, the time when China can make into the final round, the round of a football cup, become the final 32 finalists.
Nikki.
Can I just add, I very much agree with Tianyun Group's point. I think football as a business is very unique because the core value is still from the on-pitch performance that actually drives all the kind of commercial opportunities and all the resources. So that's why I think the government try to encourage the mass participation, and because that is the foundation for the whole industry, and actually that also kind of generate great commercial opportunities for other business.
And so I remember when I was at school and 8 years old, I had to do a career project, and my career as a professional footballer, sadly that failed, but that is an aspiration for young children in England. Do you see that happening, Nikki, in China?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're looking at now the core investments from Chinese business people and also all the industry stakeholders are all looking at the training, academy, grassroots development. I think that would become a very strong kind of driver for the whole industry development.
And Neil, Nikki said something that I can certainly sympathize with. No matter how hard you work off the field, on the field, it's out of your control. Clearly, in your first full year at Southampton, there have been challenges. I was talking to two people from Stoke City, 5 games to go, everything to play for. What's been the most difficult thing for you this season?
I think, well, when you invest in overseas assets and which has a long distance and a time difference, the challenge is about the cultural diversity, because clearly the enterprise management approach here in China is totally different from the overseas side, UK side, let's say, especially football club, because it's a totally different business. It's not the pure P&L or whatever can change or can impact the pitch performance. And I think we have a very good control into the business perspective in terms of the operation and the finance, whatever. And but we don't have lots of influence or impact on the football side, because we believe, we respect them, we trust them. That's their expertise for a long time. It's not us to say, hey, I'm going to buy this player, I'm going to sell that player, let this guy come in. No, it's not us to make that call. So, but sometimes when you don't, influence or step in for 100%, you lose some key points that in the process, and those tiny points will kill something. So that's what we suffer from this season. Yeah, I think we're gonna have improved in the future in terms of management structure and approach. But basically, I think the cultural diversity is the most difficult one, because you cannot just say, hey guys, let's offer you £10 million let's get us from the relegation area. Then the feedback is, it's not our culture. It doesn't work. So what can we do? So I think it's, yeah, the challenge is cultures.
So obviously, I think everybody in the room will wish you well for the last 5 games.
Thank you.
Even if you do have to play my team. But in terms of aspiration, this is a long-term investment. How do you look to the future? What is your vision for the club and its relationship with your investments in China?
So, firstly, I think the club itself has a very strong and, let's say, excellent fundamental structure within the club. Not only the hardware, but also software. Let's see, I mean, the facilities and the management team, they are all perfect. And the positioning of the club is what we expect for the whole transaction in the future. We don't expect it to be the, let's say, top 3 or top 1 in the Premier League. It's going to be crazy things for us. So I think to keep in the top 10 in the Premier League will be our ideal positioning in the future in terms of the club itself. But also, we want to replicate the best youth academy, probably in the UK, into China. So, but I think because of the different stage of the development of the football and because of the cultural diversity, if we replicate 100% that system into Chinese market or into Chinese people, that doesn't work. So we have to localize it. We have to more tailor-made it into the Chinese model, which we are still working on that. And it will require certain support from the government. It will require certain feedback from the fans and the participants in the industry in the future. So I think that's the most important area and our vision in the future in terms of both sides. But also to promote the brand of the club itself will be another good target in the future.
Thank you. Peter, from the LFE perspective, it's interesting hearing Neil's strategy for investment and why Southampton. Bari have announced that they have an agreement with you. How are you identifying the clubs you would like to invest in?
Well, that's a good question. To date, we've concentrated on second and third tier clubs and taking a substantial interest in those clubs because, again, Chelsea doesn't need a new source of capital. Man United doesn't. But all of our clubs, the clubs we've been involved in, or clubs I've owned, we're always after this additional replenishment of capital. And second and third tier clubs are always in that situation. So we found them to be very receptive to the LFE proposal. But we also do intend to invest in some of the super clubs, the elite clubs, but to a lesser degree. So it might be 1%, 3%, 5%, but still give those fans an opportunity to participate in the exchange, to buy their shares, to enjoy those special experiences. I might just add a point to Neil's comment, if I can. You made the comment about you don't interfere with the management team and the decisions on selection of players. That's true, but what we had to do was recognise that the players and the management team, the coaches staff, are crucial to getting the whole message out there to the community, and you need to have the players and the coaching staff buy into the club's concept. So if you want the whole city of Southampton to be the club, then the players and the coaches have to buy in and be prepared to go to all the special events, the hospitals, the junior clubs, etc., and it's often difficult to get professional players to buy into that arrangement.
I think certainly from what we're seeing, the last 3 to 4 years have seen a growth in the attractiveness of minority stakes in teams. The number of consortia now, such as Swansea, for example, which sees people from 1% to 2%, 3% having different stakes. We just did a deal in Ireland. It was very similar. So for you, as you build your stakes, what's your ultimate? How many clubs are you eventually hoping that you will have on this exchange?
I don't think I don't think the number of clubs is limited. As I say, the exchange will be asset-backed. The coins will be for real things. The coins will be, you'll be buying shares, you'll be buying fan experiences, you'll be buying money can't buy experiences. So there's really no limit to the amount of clubs that might want to participate. At the moment, we're approaching clubs and advising them how we can help. But what we expect to happen as early as next year is clubs will be coming to us and asking if they can be on the exchange, what kind of arrangements can we make between ourselves as the exchange and those clubs. What do they need from us, and what can we obtain for the members of the exchange?
And lastly on that topic, Peter, what do you see as the greatest obstacle to LFE succeeding?
Probably articles like the ones you quoted. But I suppose the concept of cryptocurrency is a concept that is new, but it is game-changing in every industry that we operate in throughout the world. Ours will be an educational challenge, and to sell the benefits to the clubs, which we found to be quite good at the moment, very receptive, and the benefits to be participating in the exchange and buying the coins. And so basically I think biggest challenge will be the education.
And Nikki, having started with you, and I'm conscious we're nearly at the 45-minute mark, coming back to you, there's been some very valuable input here. Before we finish on one final question, how do you see China and the soccer industry if you're looking forward and projecting? Where are we going to be if we're sitting here in Zhuhai 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Well, I think we just talk a lot about the football clubs and the league. I think that's only part of the industry. If you look at the investment where they are putting to in the industry, actually another part is the infrastructure. We have seen lots of Chinese investment into the infrastructure area, try to build up, the professional kind of area and training base or stadium, to support all the sports activities. And I think previously the percentage of private funds and investors into infrastructure area is quite low, and we have seen a lot of growth from private investment into the infrastructure side. Of course, together with working with the regional governments and associations, federations. So I think it's not only like the core business with the league and club, it's also with all the business around the sports or football industry.
Thank you. I mean, Liang Feng, picking up on what Nikki has said, in terms of the investment in entertainment, media, leisure, e-commerce, what will be your priorities as a group now in the next 3 to 5 years?
事实上，我们现在也在做足球方面的。
Well, actually, now we're also investing in the football industry because we are working with local governments to organize the F1 event. And in China, there is a sports-themed town. So it's called a sports-themed town. That's a policy from the government. And in many of these sports-themed towns, we have included football as an element because it can attract children to participate. And the football is focusing on the youth entertainment and youth training. And also it will include new technologies like VR or AR and AI and live streaming, so that you can do a role play in this football-themed or sport-themed town. And we will invest in the youth academy of football, and also we will invest in the events associated with youth training and youth academy. For example, companies that are developing esports or VR will be working with them. We will also be participating in the football rehabilitation because some children they have injured because of the wrong training approach, so that they need to rehabilitate. For example, many of them suffered from injuries in the football training, and they do not have very good rehabilitation therapies. I think that's also a promising industry for the football community. So I'm very positive and confident on the future development of football. Thank you.
Peter, looking in then, from your perspective from Australia and looking at your global investment, China, the role of China in the global game, your predictions for the next 3 to 5 years?
I think very strong. I think that we first came to China to play. We played Shanghai in 2005 in the Champions League, and later we played Guangzhou Evergrande when Lippi was coach. And just the investment, the massive investment that's taking place in the Chinese Super League has really been quite impressive. The quality of the players in the league and especially the quality of the coaching has been first class. As Neil said, will the Chinese Super League be a standard similar to the Premier League? Probably not. Probably not for some considerable time. But China is investing in getting the better product all the time. And that's what you have to do. It's a long-term investment. It's an investment. If you do want to win the World Cup, it could be a 30-year plan. France and Germany did similar things with their background in football, but they adopted a 10, 20-year plan. China's adopting really a 40 or 50-year plan, and I think the signs have been very good.
That was interesting. You look at the MLS 20 years in as to what is possible. Now, perhaps then for the final observation, then, Neil, coming to you, with your feet firmly in Europe and in China and seeing the growth in both. China to win a World Cup? How long and when do you think?
Wow. I don't think it's realistic for China to win the World Cup. But it's realistic to say China will be a part of World Cup in the near future. Well, there's two ways. One, we're going to host it anyway. So we will definitely be part of that. Secondary, we will qualify from the qualification game in Asia and to be a part of that. That's definitely things we're going to happen. And in terms of league, I don't think we should be able to be the Premier League or again second Premier League or wherever, or Italian league, La Liga league in the future. We are CSL league. We can be just the Chinese league, and a healthy league, and well-developed league, and with a large fan base league. I think it's enough for the country and enough for the fans. I don't think we have to replicate wherever things. So that's my view for that.
Thank you. I'm sure you'll agree that from Nikki, Lianfang, Neil, Peter, it has been a fascinating contribution. Everybody on the panel are available to speak to at the end, but for now, please join me in thanking them for their contribution. Thank you for coming.